Hello my friends, my family, esteemed colleagues. This video is going to be about water retention. Now, when do we retain water? How do we know that we are retaining water? Well, we feel puffy, we feel uncomfortable. Very often we have swollen limbs, but could be also puffiness in the face, underneath the eyes, eyelids even. So what is this water retention? The swelling in a body can be caused by two different mechanisms, two different systems. One we call inflammation, and one is water retention. Now, inflammation we are blaming on bodies fighting with some pathogen, which I have debunked and I show you clearly. Just check my articles or video about inflammation, that basically it is a form of a forced cellular hydration when part of affected tissue, that is in which cells are extremely acidic, is basically body is trying to release some of the acids by pushing water into the cell through increased pressure in the tissue. We have constriction of vein and artery. Under higher pressure, the blood shoots into the tissue. It cannot come out until the tissue itself pressurizes, and this internal pressure just pushes a little bit more water into the cell, allows it for some of the acidic load to, some of the toxins to come out. So this is the purpose of inflammation. An inflamed area, yes, it's also swollen, but usually is warmer and red because there is actually more red blood, more circulation going through it under higher pressure. Now, water retention, you also have swelling, but the swelling is not warm and it's not red, actually could be pale, because it's a swelling of a tissue where something is wrong. The plasma, usually it's the lymph, is being retained there. It's being blocked. Now, why is this happening? We go to our experts, just basic school teaching, and what they say, water or fluid retention occurs when there is a problem with one or more of the body's mechanisms for maintaining fluid levels. The main symptoms is swelling and discomfort. So we are being told that something is wrong with the body and it cannot control the level of plasma in the body. And the increased level of plasma is causing water retention. And this is why number one factor is always the salt. So as soon as we have water retention, the first thing doctor says, whoops, no more salt, that's it. And our food is being blamed. Oh, you have too much salt in your food, you know, this is probably why you have water retention. And we are being given diuretics to suck the liquid out of our body. But what is happening very often, people who have toxic blood, which means dehydrated blood, suffer from water retention. Usually chronically diseased people suffer from water retention, and they are all dehydrated on the cellular level and blood level, but they have water retention. So it just takes a little bit of thinking, and you know right away that there is no too much of water in the body that causes this, or too much plasma, too much salt. It's stupidity. But who's thinking? Not professionals. Professionals know it all, they don't have to think. They have been told how to think or not to think. So right away, the schooling explanation is pure baloney, it's garbage. So what is actually going on? Well, what do we notice? Number one, you have health problems before any kind of water retention starts. And sometimes you may not even be aware of it, that you have such a bad problem that water retention would occur, because you basically suffer from mild indigestions or some headaches and minor problems, and why all of a sudden your feet swell. Why is it usually happening in your feet, your ankles and feet? Well, when there is a problem with circulation, peripheral circulation is the first one to be affected. And when you have a blood going into smaller tissue, fine tissue, connective tissue, well, there you will not see red blood vessels, because the supply, as the vessels go into finer branches, they become too thin, we call them capillaries, and red blood cells are too large to go in. So basically you just have plasma, which we call lymph. Lymph is going through it. And now lymphatic clearing, going back into circulation, depends partially on the push that is coming from the arterial circulation, and partially from the suction that is being done by heart when it's absorbing. And since the blood has to go back through veins, and further away from the heart it is, lower is the suction. And what happens when your veins have a problem, because they are deteriorating, they are dehydrating, so their flaps, which we call valves, are not functioning well. So the blood, as it's being pulled up, doesn't stay, but it seeps back in. So so there is not really good lymphatic flow. And now you sit and you compress your veins a little bit more, worsening already bad functioning veins, and your feet start swelling because you just cannot. Lymph is going down and it doesn't come up. And that's why you start walking and swelling goes away, because you are not in critical situation. And if you are moving or even standing without pressure additional on your veins, you may not experience it. But little by little, you start experiencing this swelling, this water retention, even when you are standing. But when you are moving, it goes away, because you increase the speed of the heart, you increase the speed of the circulation, the pull, lymphatic pull, becomes stronger, and it gets the lymphatic system moving. It gets the plasma from the tissue moving and getting back into circulation. But as the circulation deteriorates, this is not going to be happening. So even when you are moving, you still have a problem with lymph being brought in from the bottom of your feet, because it's peripheral, your veins are damaged, the valves don't function properly, so there is a seepage, it just cannot bring it up, and you end up with swollen feet even when you are walking. And then we are saying, okay, well, raise your feet, especially if you sit, you lay down, raise your feet. But you can little by little progress into a situation that even this is not going to help you, and you may have now water accumulation not only in your feet, but also in a stomach cavity or in lungs. These are already extremes, but it can happen. So one reason why you have water retention is your screwed up blood circulation. And a second thing is, what is happening when we are in shock situation, in a fight and flight situation? Well, we squeeze, we go protect ourselves. So when sudden toxic load increases, then the cells squeeze, and they eliminate some toxins, and toxic blood, the toxicity in the blood increases. And then we have all these problems that we call flu or infection. But what happens as well, that when your blood is already toxic and this fight and flight situation happens in a tissue, the tissue constricts, so now even the capillary constricts, and as it constricts, it increases its pressure, squirts the plasma in the tissue, but the cells in the tissue know that it's a toxin there. So they right away starts creating stress proteins, heat proteins, and then basically lock in the absorption. So the pressure in the lymphatic system, pressure in the tissue increases, but cells do not hydrate. So it's not inflammation. And what is happening with the body when blood's toxicity increases? The body tries to cleanse it out. To cleanse it out, it needs plasma. If it is low on plasma, it refuses to waste it if the toxin is not very dangerous. So the mild toxicity, again, it cannot stay in the blood, is being pushed in peripheral circulation. This is even happening with uric acid. That cannot be cleansed because there is no plasma. So it's being pushed in peripheral circulation, goes into your joints and peripheral tissue. Peripheral tissue, capillary squeeze, but cells sense toxicity, don't want to hydrate. And now, since capillaries are squeezed, now even the suction that is relatively still okay, it cannot pull it out fast enough, so you have accumulation of liquid. So the toxic area may be more affected, but usually since it is from the lymphatic system, from the blood, it affects the whole body, peripheral tissue, everywhere in the body. And this is why we have now pregnant women whose blood toxicity has increased and they don't have enough plasma, all of a sudden they get puffy. They hold water. Doctor says, oh, no salt, no salt. Has absolutely nothing we can do with the salt. Okay? Same thing happens before menstrual cycle. What is menstrual cycle? It's cleansing. So the toxicity increases before it's being pushed out. And what happens? Women that do not have enough plasma, they also puff up, they swell. And their menstrual cycle, menstruation itself becomes painful because of this constriction, because of this water retention. It causes constriction and more difficulty in the process, creating pain, menstrual pains. Again, doctor, no salt, when salt is exactly what you need to prevent it, to raise the plasma levels in the blood so you can eliminate the toxins and avoid these things happening in your body. Very often, why I'm talking about water retention? Because very often people that start with a protocol, since they are very toxic, and they start taking plasma, and then they are afraid, so they don't go as protocol says, but they start slowly. And what happens? Toxins want to be released, but there is not enough plasma yet. They didn't raise the plasma level, so blood doesn't get cleansed, and the toxic movement starts affecting the body worse. And since the level of water is rising, level of plasma is rising, now the level of peripheral plasma, it is going to be rising as well. And this is why two things happen during the protocol. Only in problematic, very toxic people with already history of some chronic problems. Doesn't happen to everybody, but some people, all of a sudden, their ankle swells, their feet swell. Now, with some people, when they start increasing, they contact me, we talk about it, they increase the plasma level, the water and salt, they drink more, and in 2-3 days, bingo, this disappears, no more swelling, no more water retention. Why? Because their circulation was not that badly affected yet. And as soon as some of the toxicity cleared out, the capillaries relaxed, the tissue has relaxed, there's no more toxicity, no more fight and flight system in action. On cellular level still, because toxicity is still there, but because it has diminished, the tissue releases, goes into relaxed mode, the capillary is open, circulation is easier, and retention goes away. But the more damaged is your circulatory system, the longer will the retention be there, and actually it may increase because you are increasing now the levels of plasma in your body, which help you cleanse, but at the same time your system is deteriorated so much that the veins are in a very bad shape, the valves don't work properly. Okay, so the capillaries are dehydrated, so even when they are relaxed, they don't really have the proper diameter. Okay, everything that is dehydrated shrinks. So it takes longer time for the body to resolve the situation. Only body can resolve the situation, and only if you help it to cleanse. Which means, yes, you are having water retention, but unless you increase plasma level, unless you drink more sea salt, those minerals that you need, and water, you cannot resolve the problem. So now it becomes a trick to regulate and help the body. Now this is the point where sometimes medicinal remedy is welcome, because body is deteriorated so much that it may basically block the return of the fluid that is in your tissue, and it just keeps accumulating there. You are drinking plasma and you are basically cleansing, but you notice you are not really urinating a lot, and you don't even have the diarrhea, but you are absorbing all this water. This water has to go somewhere. Now, why are you not cleansing? Because your system is choked. You are very toxic, but also your organs, cleansing organs, are in a stress mode, high toxicity. So in this case, it could come to a point that we may decide, okay, we have to use diuretic. Because with a diuretic, now you kind of shake the system. you force it, poison came, that body decides, oh, it has to go out. And it starts taking, starts the diuretic action, which will make you urinate a lot, but because now you have quite a bit of liquid, quite a bit of plasma in your body available, only in wrong places. But body is not stupid. It will realize it and recommission it, and all of a sudden you break down in diarrhea. And you are not only getting rid of this plasma through urination, but also through very profound diarrhea. And very quickly you start deflaming. Okay, your swelling starts going down, and as soon as this happens, you start again drinking plasma, because now you want to support that you have kick-started the system, and pew, we go, and you start helping it to cleanse. It works like a charm. Of course, it doesn't work when you are scared because of the stupid knowledge that we are receiving in the school, and you say, no, salt, no salt. Now we don't take salt, we just dehydrate a person with poisons. Okay, so medicinal remedies, they do have purpose. But if we would know what we are doing in the first place, we would never allow organism to go into that stage that it requires medicinal remedy. And this is why also I recommend always, if you have a chronic problems and you want to do the protocol, especially if you are medicated, contact me. Let's work together and I will lead you through the process. So there is no fear, you understand what is going on, and we together work on it to control it and to get the body working properly as quick as possible. Again, it doesn't have to be me. Anybody who has done this protocol, especially if they had serious problems, so they have experienced most of the symptoms, then they know. You know once when you go through it. Knowing by listening to me, now you can have idea, but you don't know until you go through it. And this is why many people say, oh, this is such a great stuff, but they are saying, I'm going to tell my friends. Don't talk to anybody until you do it. Because you have, the only knowledge comes from experience. Everything else is he says, she says. That goes for my speech here. Unless you do it and you experience it for yourself, then you can talk. And then things start making sense because you went through it, you know how you felt, you know what it did, and then the other thing that you have not experienced, well, they start making more sense because it just clicks in with overall scheme of things. So, water retention has nothing to do with how much salt you have. Because even if you start drinking plain water and your circulation is bad, you are going to have water retention. Of course, with plasma, more so, because with pure water, body tries to eliminate water that it cannot bond to minerals, so it doesn't lose electroconductivity. So you are urinating more. With plasma, you're urinating less. And if your system doesn't work properly, yes, you may have a little choking of the system there. You may need to slow down on plasma a little bit, use a little bit less, maybe more water, less salt, to urinate and not to saturate. It all depends on the symptoms. People sometimes they see little swelling, and little swelling is not a problem. Little water retention is not a problem. When it's creating the debilitating you. You cannot walk because your legs are like this. Well, that's a problem. Now we'll deal with it. Or you cannot sleep because you have now water retention in your lungs. Okay, we'll deal with it. Now medicinal remedy comes in place. But until it's necessary, it's better not to use medicinal remedies and allow your body to work it out. And it always does it. It's very, very seldom. I only had maybe 4 cases that I had to use, not even 3 cases. I had to use diuretic. So, and majority of my clients are those who have lost hope because they have tried everything, or their doctor told them, well, this is it, there's nothing much that can be done. So majority of my clients are extremely, extremely problematic. And even there, only 3 times I had to use diuretic. Otherwise, it was all done just through adjustments. So don't be afraid when you see little puffiness, little swelling. And again, it doesn't have to be just ankles. Some of my clients get puffy face, puffy eyelids. It all depends where is the toxicity. Women with their makeup, of course, this is more toxic tissue and puffiness is going to come here before it comes anywhere else. So again, it's all about toxicity, toxic load, and reaction of the body when it works properly. And if it has problems, we allow it to resolve it by itself by providing body what it needs. And it's always more minerals, never less. And no supplementing, because you never know what you have to supplement, why you have these problems. If you are missing calcium, or you are missing, I don't know, iron, or you are missing copper, you don't know what you are missing because it is somewhere in your body, but not in the right places. Why? Because of your toxicity. So always detox first before you think of anything else. Okay, I hope you understand more about water retention. Liquid retention is actually plasma retention. You don't have water in the body, it's always plasma. And do not fear it. Do not get panicky if your feet swell. And it can happen in the beginning of protocol, and it can happen also in the second state, in the second phase, when your cells start releasing toxins. But most of the time, people already had these problems before they start with protocol. They just intensify a little bit. And most of the time, not much. And very often, they had this problem and they start with hydrating, and it increases for 2 days, 3 days, and then completely disappears. So it all depends on the toxicity, on the state of your circulatory system, and your heart as well, the pumping, the valves, and it all heals. Thank you for listening. If you have any particular questions, you can ask, and if I know something about it, I'll make a video or respond. Thank you for being here. Love you all.